and welcome to Geopolitical Trends. So excited to be with you as always. So, what are we gonna be talking about today? So, I'm gonna be talking to you about Indonesia. Is this is very important for you two guys know what it's going on as to why that is the case. Indonesia is an interesting country, and it's important to understand the dynamics that is taking place in that part of the world. And this, of course, it comes on the heels of the recent uh, sort of the sale of the F-15s, and what does it mean within the big picture. And that is the reason why I decided to not only release video, but also do a live stream on it to explain a few things. So, but before I'll do all this, like I always do, I like to extend my sincere thanks to the channel's members, supporters, subscribers, all of you. But I always like to give a shout out to the channel's new members and supporters. So let's give a quick shout out here to the new channel's members and supporters. So I'm going to start with a member by the name Rod Bennett. Thank you so much for becoming a channel member. Truly appreciate your support. And I'm going to give a shout out to 4 supporters. The first one is Torihono Sogande. I hope I pronounced it correctly, and my apologies if I mispronounced it. Thank you so much for becoming a channel supporter. I truly appreciate it. The next one is Fatima Zinasni. As a supporter, thank you so much for your support, Fatima. Truly appreciate it. The next person is Timothy Blewett. Thank you so much for becoming a channel supporter. And the last person I'm going to give a shout out to is Harold Yu for rejoining the channel here as a supporter. So thank you all for your continued support. I'm going to give a shout out right away to Osiris Great. Thank you so much for your continued support, Osiris. It means a lot, and I truly appreciate it. It is funny in really some challenging times when you do find that about people. It's as I said last time, I've been attacked per se, but again, that's just a drama. I'm not going to bore you with that because it's not worth it. So. But I won't shy away from speaking the truth no matter what. So I've been around long enough to know, and I will handle that kind of stuff. So your support to Cyrus and all of you means a lot, and I can't thank you enough. So I also have a few housekeeping or some announcements to make for you guys. First one is about the health channel. For you who are not familiar with my health channel, I'm gonna share the link with you. I've been posting videos on that channel, so I will greatly appreciate it if you could just check it out, subscribe. I will really appreciate your support on that. So I also want to announce to you that I will be having a health professional this weekend on Saturday at 10:30 a.m. for a live stream. You don't want to miss this because, first of all, you'll be surprised, and second is the amount of knowledge this individual has. I give him I owe it to him for some tips he gives me about my health, and I wanted to share with you. So I'm going to have him here. Also, don't forget tonight, I'm going to have a conversation with Rick Turin. He is residing in China, somebody who knows about fintech, about the finance and technology. A very, very sharp guy. I feel proud to call him a friend. He's somebody I trust. So I'm going to have a conversation with him tonight about some key issues regarding the global financial markets and so forth. So also next week, I'm inviting Dr. Hammond. For you who do not know who Dr. Ken Hammond, make sure he's a Chinese historian. So he knows the area very, very well. And I intend to ask him one question about the old history of the ties of Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia to China and so forth. So it will be fascinating conversation next week. I will post all this for you. And the last 2 things I want to say is I will be launching a private course about the government I will put the link for you guys. It's ready to go, and we'll be announcing it. We'll be launching it soon. So if you are interested, check it out. And also, I will be taking some of this conversation from here to a different platforms. You all know what I'm referring to here, because censorship is real. So I started one yesterday on locals, and I will be doing that on a regular basis. And I will post all this for you guys, for you to understand. So anyway, let's dive into our topic. So today, what are we going to be talking about? I decided to follow up on the video that I released this morning with a live stream to explain a few things and to put things in perspective for you, because of the changes that I see coming. There are major changes, geopolitical ones, coming to that part of the world, Indonesia and the vicinity of that part of Asia. So the next question that, like I always say, to start the conversation with, is we ask key questions to trigger our thinking. And this is now to really put the content of what I'm going to be talking about within its proper context, because there are a lot of analysis out there. There are a lot of white papers out there. There are a lot of articles out there, but they are manipulative. They are trying to influence people's thinking about, oh my gosh, Indonesia is going to be sucked in and got into the middle of this rival confrontations between Russia and China, US and China, and they need to do this and do that. Nothing but hypes, nothing but a manipulation. And if you only know where those white papers coming from, where those analysis coming from, where those articles coming from, who is authoring them, where do they study, where they work for, you'll put the two together and figure out. And this is what I'm here to decipher that for you in a simple language. So, of course, what I tell you, it's just my opinion. It's my personal analysis, my perspective, but also my reaction to certain articles. But the conclusion is yours. I've always promised you this. We never, ever try to influence your thinking this direction or that direction. We never do that, because it won't be right of me to do so. I don't like it to be done to me. I won't do it to others. Simple as that. Second question we need to ask is, how will that impact now that Indonesia purchased F-15s, how that's going to impact the rivalry between US and China in that part of the world? Because that's a logical question to ask. So then you put all this within the major events that's coming up in Indonesia. Does anybody know what it is? If you can put the answer on the chat box there. What is the upcoming major event in Indonesia? Let me just see, guys, if you keeping up or following up with whatever you might. It'd be interesting to see. So I'm going to give it some time here, but I'll move on with my conversation. And if you get the answer to that, what is the major events coming up in Indonesia? So, all right, let's dig into this here. So what lies ahead for Indonesia? A question that any observer of international affairs, any geopolitical, any one with understanding of what international affairs are all about, will be asking. And not only about Indonesia, we'll be asking about Philippines, for example, in recent developments that's taking place with Marcos Jr., or the recent developments with the US now allocating $80 million for Taiwan as far as weapons. The bottom line is the developments that's taking place. So anybody will be asking the logical question, what lies ahead for Indonesia moving forward? So, and in this case, given, of course, there are sort of tensions between the US and China. We all know this, economically speaking. Now, geopolitically, of course, they are. You look no further than, for example, with with NATO is going to open up an office in Japan. And I already talked about all this. I don't want to be repeating myself. You look at the tensions in Taiwan. You look at, for example, the military agreement we made with PNG, Papua New Guinea. And of course, with the naval hub we're going to be having in India. All this, I'm not even going to mention Australia because we all know Australia doesn't have a sovereignty anymore. And as a matter of fact, some of this analysis is coming out regarding Indonesia is coming out of Australia, believe it or not. So maybe I'll do a conversation on a Rumble because you can talk openly there, and I will disclose some names and I'll disclose some stuff. So I will let you know when and if I decide to do that, and you can join me on a Rumble if you like to do that or to hear what I have to say on that. So the question of the tensions between China and the United States, of course, is there. Nobody can deny this, and you can't deny this, because if you deny it, that means you are not sort of paying close attention, or you are not assessing, And this is where I see the misleading, and I am here to push against that. This is where I see the misleading of those white papers, the analysis, the articles that is now fomenting the narrative towards, Indonesia is going to have to pay close attention to what's going on between US and China because you don't want Indonesia to be sucked into the... No. All this is nothing but hypes. And here is why. If you are to assess, you take a step back and assess about ASEAN as a whole, as an entity. I've said this before on a record that Philippines is considered to be the weak link in Philippines. Now, will Indonesia be considered that? We can't say that definitively or conclusively at this point now. That depends on many, many factors. But to mislead the masses into thinking Indonesia has to do A, B, and C because they don't want to be sort of pulled into a conflict. No, Indonesia can maintain its neutrality if it chooses to do so. No need to play with words and influence this and that. For Australia, in the case of if Australia is pushing this narrative, it's for a reason. And you know what this reason is? It's because Indonesia's economic ties to China. Indonesia is considered one of the, sort of at the top when it comes down to ASEAN economies. Why is this? It's not in a vacuum. It's because it's economic ties with China. Well, we all know what happened between China and Australia. We all know where the economy of Australia is. This is why the push in Australia about China is being a national security threat. It's nonsense. You all know this. Now, what I am observing and watching from reading, I've been reading analysis and, as I said, articles and all that is pushing the narrative towards that. No, because that's how you do it in academia. Remember, in academia, they are not this, they are saints. No. They can be as manipulative as you can even imagine. I've been through the process. I know how it is. I had to push back against one of my my committee members who was a former national security agency employee, just because we didn't agree on certain things. And I wasn't about just to swallow whatever he was going to say. I pushed back against it. So this is what I'm noticing. And this is why I'm saying there are a plethora of articles out there. I do feel comfortable using the term, some of them are misleading. Others are manipulating. Others are cherry picking the information. And again, this is my own opinion. I don't speak on behalf of anybody. And if I am to criticize an author or whatever, it's because I disagree, and that's my opinion. Now, he or she is entitled to reject my criticism. I got criticism for my books when I published them. For my, I published over 145 articles. Some of them have been criticized, and I kind of, what do you do? It's their opinion. You're respected. You welcome it, and life goes on. And by the way, those 140 articles that I wrote, feel free, guys, to use them. You have my permission, because that's what knowledge is all about. So if, I published in a different, you have to really dig into the sources and platforms where I published, and including I even wrote for South China Morning Post. Oh, just to let you know. So here is the thing. Before we I move an inch into the ASEAN summit. Now, that will be G20 summit coming up soon, but that's not that. But thank you for sharing that one of the answers. This one has to do with the Indonesian presidential elections coming up in February in 2024. So let me share some pictures with you here, guys, so you see what are we talking about for those who might be just joining us. This one has to do with the purchase of Indonesia of F-15s, which, by the way, F-15s is considered, an obsolete, because here's the thing. If you are to compare the performance of F-15s to, let's say, Su-54 of Russia, or what is another, even F-16 for us in the US, F-35s to a degree, or J-20 from China, F-15 will not stand a chance. So that is the importance aspects of all this. But it behooves us to at least mention something about the geography and history of Indonesia. I'm going to leave this on here for a while, just for you to see while I'm addressing some of facts about Indonesia. Well, Indonesia, and by the way, I'm going to share a link with you where I found the information from a geography specialist, and some of the sources for this is from the Central Intelligence Agency. So this way we put things on a record here where this information is coming from. So Indonesia is considered one of the world's largest archipelago with about 13,000 plus islands, And by the way, out of those 13,000, 6,000 out of them are inhabited. Inhabited. Yeah, there's no people living there. So I never been there. I've been close to the vicinity of that area. Been in not only Phnom Penh. What was the country I want to? I drew a blank on it right now. Kathmandu. That's where I've been. So Indonesia has long history, and its history, it's not tied just to, for example, the economic instability, which we all know, but also political, And those ones now sort of is changing. When I say has a history, that history was way back. But it's changing. And this is what the geography specialist here, or expert by the name of Amanda Brini. And Amanda Brini, which I looked her up, and she got her master's degree in geography from the University of California State University. So she is considered a professional geographer. So I will take her statements at face value, because you don't get to be certified in advanced studies of geography or in geographic information system just to be saying whatever. No, this is somebody you will respect her input about this. And this is where I'm going to share with you some of her insights about Indonesia. And now, like I said earlier, I will react to some articles pertaining to this. So the long history of Indonesia, of course, that began with organized civilization on the islands of Java and Sumatra. This is why those two islands are very, very crucial. We all know here in the West, anytime the word Indonesia comes up, right there, we think of Java and Sumatra. That's just the norm. So, well, if you think back in history, it used to be the Buddhist kingdom. They're called Srivijaya. Yeah, Srivijaya, which is grew on Sumatra from the 7th to the 14th century. And by the way, I intend to address this with Dr. Hammond when he comes in here on the show, because that's part of history. And he's someone I trust, and he will give us a lowdown of exactly the link or the ties there. And here is what happened. By the 14th century, the Eastern Java saw the rise of the Hindu kingdom, which is called Mahabharata. So Mahabharata's chief at that time, chief minister from 1331 to 1364, was able to gain control of much of what is present day Indonesia. So the history of Indonesia has evolved, and it's important to understand this, to put it within the bigger picture of why, as I said at the beginning, the narrative from certain entities trying to influence the thinking of the masses in Indonesia when you consider the upcoming presidential elections and who is running for office. And I'll get into that as I move forward. So after the 13th century, or I'm sorry, after between 1331 and 1364, right after that, Islam, the religion of Islam, arrived in Indonesia in the 12th century. And by the end of the 16th century, it replaced Hinduism as the dominant religion in both those locations, Java and Sumatra. That is what's important for you to know. So I'm going to share the link with you guys so you can read up on this on your own when you have a time to do so. And remember, that's from a geography specialist. That is, her name is Amanda Brainy. She's a geography expert. So you think about it, that China, and if I were to put this within the context, once again, I can't stress enough, you guys need to start reading articles, analysis, white papers carefully, because you could be misled in a subtle way. Just because it's written by this PhD candidate or this professor or this, no offense to anybody here, but you just have to know how to read between the lines. Because here is the thing, you have to put all this within context of China and Indonesia relations. And this is why certain entities want to prevent Indonesia from moving forward economically, because it's prospering due to its economic ties to China. That's what's at the heart of it. So if you look at this historically, Indonesia and China established their diplomatic, officially that is, relations back in 50s, And it was always known, at least in the circles of international relations, it was always known as Sino-Indonesian relations. But this is what official relationships started, or diplomatic relations started in the 50s. But it goes back centuries before that, 2 centuries before. It maintained that relationship between those two countries. And what was it through? Political exchange of representatives? No, it was in trade. That's what it was. And at that time, it was informal because it was no setup at that time, 2 centuries ago. So you think about it. Under Sukarno's presidency, Sukarno president served from 1945 to 1967. Okay, relations at that time between Indonesia and China, some sort of flourished, moved forward, deepened, if we use the term, in the early 1960s. And this is why, if you go back to that history, that period of history, and check, what would you find? You will find that Sukarno has sort of embarked or adopted some sort of a foreign policy that it was anti-imperialism at that time. And if you know anything about the 60s, what was in the 60s? Can anybody put the answer on the chat box? What was going on in the 60s? Let me first say thank you to, because I like always to express my sincere gratitude. Thank you so much, Tracy, Gavin, for your super sticker. I truly appreciate it. And thank you for becoming a channel member. So I give a shout out to you as well. Thank you so much for for becoming a member. So the idea of, let me put the mat back for you guys. The idea of going back to that era, what was known in the 60s. Let me see what you guys put in here. Communism. You're absolutely correct, Gerald. Yes, you're absolutely correct. So what happened at that time? Because Sukarno at that time, embarking on that policy, wanted to ensure that Indonesia will not be pulled in that polarized world between the two superpowers at that time, Soviet Union on one end and the United States on another. So, and this is why he personally sort of advocated for none other than non-alignment approach. That is what this white paper, that is what those articles, that is what this analysis emanating from certain entities, be it in Australia, be it in Singapore, be it in Malaysia, or even from within Indonesia, it's not highlighting these aspects of it. So, of course, nobody can deny, and I am not denying this, that this approach by Sukarno has sort of led to certain developments, or what's the word I'm looking for? Increasing some sort of tensions with the West. And that impacted the relationship with China and the USSR at that time. That is what's important to understand. And if you don't put this within the context of this, then it will not make sense to you. That's what prompted me to come and do this one here. So now the next question will become to us is, okay, how this fits in with what lies ahead or what's upcoming in Indonesia. Well, like I asked the question, let me remove this picture here. What's coming? But also, before I'll jump into this, if you look at also, you can't ignore geography. There is why in political science field, there is that area of political geography for a reason. So let me share this picture with you here, and I'm going to leave it here for a moment just for you to see and understand. What are we looking at here? We're looking at the Strait of Malacca. And when you look at where the countries are, and this is one thing I'm going to be addressing about three of them: Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore. Briefly. Our focus today is on Indonesia. So Malacca Strait, trillions of dollars crosses these waters. That's why it's so important to understand why there is this push to create, because look at the size of Indonesia, of course. But this is why, as an analyst, I have to break it down, and I'm breaking it down for you guys in a simple language to understand. This push, okay, through articles, this push through white papers, this push through analysis, as how much Indonesia will have now to be very careful because they're going to be pulled into the... No, Indonesia can still manage, if it knows how, maintain its neutrality. I can say that about Philippines, which to me now is a foregone conclusion. You know, it's a foregone conclusion. So Philippines has flipped. There's no other way of looking at it. You know, Japan and South Korea, that's, we all know the history of that. Australia is gone. So PNG is wondering, okay, even though it signed the deal with the United States militarily. So you are left with those three countries: Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore. Three key factors. As one who worked in Washington, okay, we used to have our own dealings with the security agencies of the three countries. So let's just start with the SID first. Does anybody know what the SID is? This is especially when it comes down to Singapore. Let me see what any of you in Singapore. That's basically the intelligence service. So the intelligence service usually plays a major role into influencing with certain directions of how things go. So, and I will tell you why I am mentioning this as I move forward in my explanation here. So the next question we need to ask is the idea of understanding what's taking place in Indonesia in the next few months. What's taking place is the presidential elections. That's very important for you to understand. And the reason being because without understanding who's running for office, and I'm going to share some pictures with you, so you'll have an understanding of who is running first and so forth for you to put. Let me share this picture with you. All right, here is the first one. Share the screen. You should know who this is. All right, add to the screen. Here we go. You should know who that is, right? This is the current defense minister. That's Prabowo Subianto. Now, Subianto, remember, he ran for president a few times and didn't win. As a matter of fact, this last time when he ran for office and didn't win, Jokowi invited him, offered him the position of defense minister. Now, he does have a military background, a former special ops commander, and so that's what he's running for. And that's the one advocating. He's about 71 years of age. So that's what Subianto is, one of the leading, or one of the candidates are running for office. You have the next person is, I got to pronounce it correctly here, Ganjar Pranowo. So let me share a picture with you of Ganjar Pranowo. It's right here. Yeah, this one is it's considered a contender as a governor of the Central Java. One of the country's most populous. So when you are in the most populous area of the country, it tends to have some sort of a boost in elections and so forth. So it's very interesting to see how this is going to be work out. Now, remember that he did play a role in when President Jokowi was running for elections at that time. So, and we have the third person here. Here's the third person. Now, the third person is an academic, or academician rather. So, and I'm going to share the link with you guys so you know. He's considered the governor of Jakarta. Now, if you think about what I know about Indonesia, anytime you serve as a governor of Jakarta, that's like a springboard for the presidency. Jokowi did the same, by the way. So could it be the possibility that he will be the next? Maybe, maybe not. So far, there's an indication that Indonesians that is, are leaning towards him. Whether he's gonna win the elections or not, I can't speak of that because I don't live there, first of all, and the dynamics are so intricate to just come with a conclusive conclusion that, oh, this is the guy's gonna win. No. What's going to be happening is behind closed doors, there will be the influence from the United States. There will be influence from Australia. There will be influence from even neighboring countries, the allies there. And this is why you need to put things in perspective and understand this dynamics. Because, again, nothing happens in a vacuum, guys. I want you to understand that. I do have, by the way, one of the channel's subscribers shared this with me. I'm going to share it with you without disclosing the name because I didn't seek the permission first, and I'm not going to do it. So I'm assuming it will be okay. So he put, and I quote, he or she, because I don't know. He put, and I quote here, "Hello, Dr. David Walaleo. For the record, Prabowo Subianto is not what you think he is. He was a Catholic, ethnic Chinese Indonesian who converted to Muslim when he married the then President Suharto's daughter. He seemed to be more Pribumi than a true-blooded primobi, as it is always the case. I'm just saying my 2 cents word. End of quote. That's just an opinion, no more, no less. Sharing his opinion, and I wanted to share it with you to understand. So for those who are from that part of the world, you'll have a better understanding, but you need to understand the dynamics of what's going on, to why all of a sudden you are reading some analysis or some articles or some white paper that focusing on how Indonesia is going to be pulled into these tensions between China and the US. Now, Indonesia can stand its ground by staying neutral if that is what it wants. As a matter of fact, most ASEAN, except for Philippines, as of now, they are all maintaining that neutrality. Singapore, give or take. So, and this is what I mentioned, the idea of Singapore, why I mentioned the SID, the Security and Intelligence Division inside Singapore. Now, if you know anything about Singapore, and I'm going to share one document with you, Singapore at some point, when I was still in Washington, there was a behind closed doors investigation about some money laundering. Even some major banks here in the US were involved. And I remember I had, what's his name, Mr. Hussein Askari, and disclosed that and provided the reference and the source for who he was. So I think it was JP Morgan's, if I'm not mistaken. So my point is, when it comes down to corruption, when it comes down to certain aspects, it's kind of the norm, okay? There is an article out there written by Mercedes Ruel in Singapore, and this was published on August 23rd regarding, and I put the title here, and I put the link for you. It says Singapore seeks documents from banks in money laundering probe. So let me copy the link and send it your way, guys, so you can read it later on. Okay. Now, the next one is Malaysia. Why Malaysia comes into a conversation here? Why do you think that is? It's because also there are certain of big problems in Malaysia. So again, as one who worked in DC, I'm very familiar with the special branch within the Royal Malaysian Police, without going further. So, and funny, it was always easy to reach out to them if we need to know something about someone. Shouldn't be that hard. So here's what happened. In 2013, get this, guys, 2013, Malaysia was identified in a survey by Ernst & Young as one of the most corrupt countries in the region. And this is according to the perception of foreign business leaders along with neighboring countries. And I'm going to share the link with you. It was an article was written in November 26, 2020 by Siti Farhana Sheikh Yahya. So, and the link, it says corruption, a big problem in Indonesia. I'm sorry, in Malaysia. So here is the link. I'm going to share it with you, and you guys can read it later on. Because that's how you're going to become well informed. That's how you won't fall for the trap or certain articles that try to manipulate you, or certain analysis that are try to persuade you to think this way but not that way, because they want to divert your attention here for you not to see over here. That's what I'm doing here, is provide you that landscape, and you decide and you reach your own conclusion. The third one is Badan. So to those who are in Indonesia, know what I'm talking about. Badan is the Badan Intelijen Negara Republik Indonesia, which is another word, Indonesian State Intelligence Agency. So it's always referred to, at least for us in our circles back in DC, as BIN, BIN, so which is basically the primary Indonesian intelligence agency. Now, here's a question for you. If I am to mention the term or the country of Indonesia, what comes to your mind right away? Can anybody type in what comes to your mind right away, especially when it comes down to corruption? And I know it takes a while for this to show up here. So, and I will get back to it here. What comes to your mind right away as soon as... Oh, yes, you're right. You're right on your comment. What's the name? Taiwan, right there. Yeah, Taiwan still. You are absolutely correct. Follow the money. Who controls? You're absolutely correct. And this is why I'm saying you need to understand. You need to understand why all of a sudden there is this narrative about Indonesia being pulled, is going to be pulled into these tensions between US and China. You know, who's funding those articles? Who's funding those entities? Where those authors coming from? That's what you need to pay attention. As I told you, I intend to do one episode about this on a Rumble, and I will disclose. I mentioned to you the 3 intelligence agencies, and that's all I can say here. If you want to find out more, and I will communicate with you when I'm going to do that. So, somebody I saw, you mentioned BRI. That is correct. That's one aspect, but there is something else about when it comes down to Indonesia. The NED, yeah, National Endowment for Democracy. You're absolutely correct. You know, the one I'm referring to here, guys, because I don't want to waste too much of your time, it has to do with Suharto. You all know the history of Suharto, right? The giant, this is the article that I found, the giant of modern Indonesia who left a legacy of violence and corruption. Do you agree with this title? And I'm going to share the link with you and who authored this particular article, because you need to know. And this one was authored by Tim Lindsay. And Tim Lindsay, by the way, is a professor of Asian law. So somebody, I think he has he has an idea of what he's talking about, you know, and somebody like him will have a pushback. Others will push against what the narrative he's saying. It's because the objective is to manipulate the masses. So that is the whole idea of it. So Harto, you're absolutely correct. Yep, you're absolutely correct. You hit the nail on the head. That's what it is. So the idea of thinking all this now is happening within the big picture. So this is why I knew about him back then. I mean, we were aware. We used to have access to files and understanding and who's who and who's doing what. You know, for 32 years at the helm of power. You know, come on. And this is what I'm trying to get you guys to understand. So here's the link. When you have time to read it later, that will be great, because that's how you're gonna learn about really what's going on. It's, once again, I will make it my mission to push back against misleading information. You know, do I know what I'm getting into? Yes, I do. And that's part of it. You know, I won't harbor any negative feeling or any bad emotions towards anybody. No need for that. It's waste of energy. I forgive. Even I was attacked. My character was attacked. I forgive. You know, and that's why I'm saying, guys, my work, my over 140 articles, feel free to use them. So you just need to know where to look at. You need to know where to look at. So this is what I wanted to share with you, to put this in perspective for you, to understand what you're going to be hearing. Because here's the thing. When an empire is on its way down. Chaos becomes the norm as part of its foreign policy. And this is exactly what we are seeing taking place in Asia, fomented by the United States, by my country. I can't sugarcoat it. So I intend to do a video for you about the recent summit of BRICS, which there is no coverage here in the US as far as the, who are the winners and who are the losers and how that's going to shape the trajectory of the global order moving forward. And I intend to detail that, especially when I took a look at the list who have officially applied, let alone the one that's been accepted. So, and to the other point that one of you guys mentioned, BRI, that is very crucial point. This is why, because once again, economic ties between Indonesia and China are good, and Indonesia is benefiting from that. So is China. Australia doesn't want to see that. The US doesn't want to see that. Philippines flipped. If you all recall, when Duterte used to be in power, went to China and kind of, yes, there were some tensions regarding islands and all that, and they kind of resolved some of them. It's one of the issues I intend to address with the historian Dr. Hammond, and it's someone I trust. So, all right, guys, that's all I have to share with you because I wanted to be concise about this one here. Just FYI, remember to join me tonight at 2100 hours for my conversation with Rick Turin about the global financial system, especially against the backdrop or in the wake of the BRICS summit. Major developments. Also, remember to join me on Saturday morning with my health professional guest. It will be on the health channel, by the way, and I'm going to post it for you. It will be a fascinating conversation as always. So I truly appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate your support. I appreciate your kind words, by the way, on the posting on the community. We are just a community here. I'm going to keep pushing back against if I see something that doesn't make sense. I will speak out on it because, like I always say, your time means a lot to me, and I will never, ever waste your time. As always, remember, geopolitics impact your daily life in more ways than one. Till next time, guys. Bye-bye.